Hello, Alicia.
Well, hey, Debbie.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited about today, and I just want to tell you and let everyone know how much I appreciate you inviting me on your Let's Talk
Oh
LinkedIn
my
Live.
gosh, I was thrilled because, and as you know, we were going to do this out in your on your property, but as life has it, in Texas right now, for those of you who aren't in Texas, we've got severe winds, and Alicia's hair would have been like this. Not don't have as much, but it would have been like this, and so we decided to to do it in our office and studio. So I'm just thrilled you're here, and you have so many cool things to tell us, and I'm looking forward to hearing all that. I know a lot of it, but I want to share that with the audience. So if you're here, let us know where you're from and whether you're here live or recorded. We're just glad you're here, that you took the time, because time is precious, and it's going to be fun talking with Alicia and hearing her story and what she does. But be sure and give Alicia some love, some likes, and some hearts, and some comments, and ask questions. We want to be engaging with y'all as well. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. Come in and let us know. I'm going to monitor on the phone as well. So we've got all kinds of things going, because I'm on StreamYard on the live, and it doesn't always show all the comments from LinkedIn. So I have to have both of them to make sure that we're all here. So without further ado, as I said, we were going to do this on Alicia's property, which is beautiful, and in East Plano over here, Wiley area, but we couldn't do it because of the weather, and that's just how life is. You have to adjust. But I think it's important. Let's talk about what's behind you, Alicia. Tell us
Oh
about
my
the
goodness.
huge bear back there, because I know it's got a story. It has to have a story.
Absolutely. Yes. This is a grizzly bear from Grand Teton National Park, and her name is Blondie. And you can see the beautiful blonde highlights on her shoulder right there. That's natural. She doesn't even have to go get her hair done. But she is very important to me because she's part of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, where there's such a diverse wildlife, everything from grizzly bears down to your tiny, tiny birds, like a belted kingfisher, butterflies, moths, you name it, foxes, coyotes, elk, bison. But what's special about Blondie is one day, my husband and I had been searching for a pair of grizzly bears that had been courting one another. One is named Blondie, this gal, and then her boyfriend is named Bruno. Now, don't get confused here. Bruno is not exclusive. He will date all the lovely grizzly sows, you know. But we were looking for them, and we were only in Grand Teton National Park for like 4 days. This is in May 2015. When we searched for them, we couldn't find them. Finally, on our last day of our visit, we came across a friend who that I met in Yellowstone, who also photographs wildlife. We've, would see each other, cross paths in Yellowstone and Grand Teton every year for several years. And I asked Bill, so where's Blondie? Where's Bruno? And he said, well, let me tell you what happened last night. I'm like, I don't want to hear what happened last night. We missed it. Well, wouldn't you know it, he's telling us what's going on. And all of a sudden we hear someone yelling, bear, bear. And we're looking around and we're thinking, I don't know what they're seeing. And again, they're yelling urgently, bear, bear. We look over towards the edge of the woods. We were kind of in a parking lot, but there was an edge of the woods about 25 feet away. And here comes Bruno lumbering out of the forest, heading straight for us. And I about flipped out because it's a wild bear.
I was going to say, it's a bear. They're dangerous, or they can be.
They can be dangerous.
Yes.
And what did I do? I ran. And Bill saying, don't run. And I went, okay.
You kept running.
What I did was I slowed down. I'm a short little lady, but my legs grew about 10 feet long. And I just, slower than I wanted to, made it back to the safety of our Jeep. He walks out, and not a few minutes later, here comes Blondie. And so we were able to capture the couple in a field of these beautiful yellow flowers with mountains behind them, the sun shining. It was an amazing experience, but that was a situation where I was literally blindsided by a bear.
Which is why you have to be so cautious. I want to say hi to Janine. Janine is in Australia. I love the fact that you know how much I love social, Alicia, just because of the fact you can connect on a global scale. There are truly no borders or boundaries anymore. So welcome, Miss Janine. We're glad you're here. And so I know it's early there. And so thank you for coming on and joining us, because I think it's like 4 o'clock or 5 in the morning. It's very early. So Janine's an artist she did live in Trinidad, but now she's in Australia. So she does a lot of beautiful paintings. But when did you start? When did you have such an affection and a love of wildlife?
You know, Debbie, I'm really lucky because my mother gave me the love of wildlife and nature when I was very young. There would be times that even as a little girl, we'd walk in a park. We spent every Sunday in a park, it seems like,
Wow.
when I was
Wow.
younger. And she would start identifying, this is anemone, these are trillium, these are trout lilies. She'd identify all the wildflowers.
Wow.
So I picked up on that. And of course, she was a lover of animals and volunteered for a museum that had little small animals that she would take and educate school children with. So,
Wow.
really, my first brush with a wild animal was an alligator that was in our bathtub while my mom was keeping this alligator to take it to the schools the next day to show the kids. Now, the alligator was only about that big.
But still, yeah. When I was a school principal, I had a rule, and this is probably I shouldn't share this, but I had this rule: they could have any animal they wanted, any reptile they wanted. They couldn't have snakes because they always, oh, they're going to be in the cage. No, they get out sometimes. So that was the only rule I ever had when it came to the science rooms and all that stuff. All the other stuff I was fine with, but I could not do the snake. So
I
anyway,
understand.
so I
Snakes,
know we have some people on here who yeah, I don't do well with snakes.
I
I
know.
think that's such a good point though about the wildlife and the nature, because we live in the country too, and everybody knows who knows me knows about Sadie Mae, our 2-year-old granddaughter. She'll be 2 in March. She loves outdoors. That child will stay out and play in the dirt all day long if you let her, which I think we don't do enough with children. And I think it's such a healthy thing, because there's a lot of research that will show you just your not only your mental health but your physical health is better when you have um, part of nature in your life.
You know, it's true. Yes, children in nature is important. Adults in nature is important.
Yes.
As I like to say, nature nurtures. It really does help with calming your senses down. You know, it's kind of difficult at first, especially if you're in a high stress situation, and it's suggested that you go spend time outside. Sure, you're going to sit there for a minute and think about your entire to-do list. You're going to go right through it, right? But once you can put that aside and turn this off, your device off, and sit there and just what I recommend is, if you're new to this, is to just start looking at 5 things: the color of a tree, the movement of a leaf, the feel of the air, the ambient air around you. What do you hear? Are those birds? Are there squirrels running around? And is there something you can smell? So really touch on your 5 senses
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Now,
That's
yeah,
tell us about Yellowstone. You've been like what, 20 sometimes 20 times or so?
just over 20 visits. So my husband took me there for the very first time in 2006.
Oh,
Yeah, I had never been really to a national park
well,
before.
it's
I had,
relatively new, 2006. I mean, not
yeah, I mean, that's 16,
yeah.
7, almost 17 years ago when we first went. And I had no idea what to expect, but I will never forget when I first arrived, seeing the majestic mountains jutting out of the earth in Grand Teton National Parks. I know
Yeah.
you've been there, and aren't they
Oh
magnificent?
my gosh, you can't you just want to take a deep breath when you even hear that, because you stand there and you look at it. It's breathtaking. There's no other word for it. Truly God's magic. It's breathtaking. Yeah, for sure.
It absolutely is. And it was in Grand Teton when I saw my very first wild bear, and it was a grizzly bear, and her name is number 399. And she was 10 years old at the at the time, and she
Wow.
had 3 cubs. And this bear has become infamous. Millions of visitors have photographed her, people know about her, and they advocate for her safety. But she has produced quite a few cubs, quite a
I
few
was going to ask you,
offspring.
do you know how many she's had?
Um,
Did you
I
keep
think
track of that?
I think it's somewhere between it's actually probably about 23 because she had
Wow.
4 cubs 3 years ago
Oh,
at the
wow.
age of 26. At
Oh,
26 years
wow.
old,
Wow.
a grizzly bear usually in the wild doesn't live much more than 28, 30 years if they're lucky.
Right. Wow.
So she turns 28 this year. She's hibernating right now. So we're really excited to see if she'll
When will you
continue.
go back? When will you go back?
May. May is
Okay.
a good time for us to go.
Okay. Now tell us about the equipment you use because I can't even imagine. I know you can't get that close to the Bruno and Blondie. And so, what do you use for your equipment? Because I'm so mesmerized. The only equipment I use for a camera is right here.
Yep. And you know what? I say you got to start somewhere. If you don't have, a large camera, that's okay. Start somewhere because people take really amazing landscape shots with their cell phones.
Yes.
Hey, Robin, thank you.
One
You're
of our
lovely
dear
too.
friends, Robin. Robin lives in the uh, is it Arkansas or Tennessee? I
Tennessee,
say
and
in
she
Tennessee.
has otters.
Yeah, Tellico, Tennessee. She lives on a beautiful property up in the just gorgeous. And talk about wildlife. I'm sure she sees all kinds every day.
She, I'm actually jealous of Robin because she has otters in a pond nearby that come to visit her, and otters are like my favorite.
So tell us about your equipment.
So this is a digital SLR camera, and it's got a telephoto lens on it, and it's pretty hefty. I I haven't weighed it. I don't know. I think my combined gear when I put this on a tripod, because with bears, wolf, you have to be 100 yards away. That's the guideline.
I said
And
that's guidelines, right? Yeah.
And then with other wildlife, it's 25 yards, like bison and elk. And then, so this is a telephoto, so the lens can extend or get shorter. But
Wow.
this is what I use for my wildlife photos. And Janine, yeah, I'll share
Yeah,
a few
Janine's
for sure.
asking a great question there.
And then I also have what's another lens. That lens was a 200 to 500 millimeter lens. I always recommend at least a 400 or 500 millimeter when you're shooting wildlife. And then for landscapes, you can go anywhere from a 16 millimeter fixed lens to what I have here is a 24 to 120. Now I call this my hip camera, and I keep this a strap. I put the strap on me, and I carry this with me along with my large camera and tripod because if an animal happens to walk up onto us, I'm not going to be able to capture it with the longer lens, so I use the shorter
Oh,
lens. But I
wow.
also use the shorter lens for landscape. But these are Nikon products, Canon, Sony. Oh, as a matter of fact, the digital, uh, the Sony cameras that are mirrorless are supposed to be just outstanding, and I'm actually going to look into it.
I can't even imagine. So Janine has a really good question. What are some top tips for photographing wildlife? Great question.
So
Thank you,
in
Janine.
Yellowstone, you can pretty much find wildlife throughout the entire day because there's just so many. But in your own backyard, you want to look at going out at dawn and at dusk. So as the sun is coming up and as the sun is setting. As the sun is setting, you'll probably see owl, you might see raccoon, you might see skunks. I don't know. Do you have skunks in Australia? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Sure.
But in the morning, you'll have all kinds of bird activity. You'll have rodent activity like rabbits, and you, you'll have deer. Excuse me, deer, uh, and there's just those are the 2 times of the day that you want to focus on. But again, wildlife can pretty much happen throughout the day. I've seen bobcat come out. come out in the middle of the night, but I use a game camera really or it's not a game camera. It's like the cameras you use to monitor your home, security
Right.
camera.
Right.
But we've had bobcat and fox come in the middle of the night. Now I can't photograph those. The
I've
other
seen those on your Instagram account. That's cool.
Yeah. But as far as other tips, you want a fast shutter so that you can stop the motion. And then you need a camera that has some high that will capture higher megapixels. So
Right.
I hope that helped a little bit.
That was great. More than I knew, that's for sure. Miss Robin said she saw 2 deer this morning as she was heading into town. We have deer out here where we are, and we don't encourage it. We don't feed them because of the horses and the ticks and stuff. But there's just we've watched this one family grow. They started with one. I mean, they got like 3 fawns now. And I want to say family, I don't know, but that's what it appears. A male and a female and 3 little ones. But yeah, for sure, for sure.
That
So.
is so
Um,
cool.
Robin was asking, tell about some setting up on the side of the road as the bison herd started down. Okay.
Well, Robin, bless your heart. I appreciate you remembering that little story. I guess I made a profound impact because it impacted us. We were searching for wolf in Yellowstone, and I'll make it really short since we don't have hours here. But we were actually looking for a pack of wolves, and we could not. Well, let's see. Everybody had congregated in this one area, and there was really no place to stand. My husband actually parked his Jeep. So in Yellowstone, you park on the side of the road to start looking for wildlife. You will see people standing, and if they've got binoculars or a camera, pull over so that you can ask them, what are you looking at? Because there's no telling what they're looking at. They could be looking at an eagle. They could be watching coyotes hunting. Or a grizzly bear eating on a carcass. It just depends on it's different, and that's why we go back every year. It's so different. Nothing is the same. But on this one instance, several years ago, we were looking for wolf, and it was just too many people. So we decided to go about a mile down the road. And a mile down the road, we saw these beautiful bison, and they were just grazing along a nice little river, and we're taking pictures. And then suddenly we see wolf appear, and the bison got agitated, and they
Oh,
started running, and they were stampeding. They started stampeding down a hill in front of us, going towards the river the river separated us from the buffalo. And we thought, oh my gosh, they're headed this way. And I kept looking at Rick going, shouldn't we get in the Jeep just to get out of the way? And Rick's like, no. And he's just taking one photo after another because they're just running, and you can hear them grunting, and the dirt's flying up in the air, and you can feel the vibration of the ground as they're
and your
thumping.
Jeep would have done nothing to protect you. I
There's
mean, really,
nothing.
it really wouldn't have.
No, there's nothing except there was a minivan next to me, and I thought, you know what? I can run over that little girl and just dive into that minivan. Uh,
Do what
but
you gotta do.
I tell you, and finally the buffalo splashed into the river, and they swam across the river, and now they're like 30 yards away from us,
Oh my
way too
God.
close. And I'm starting to back up. I'm just going to leave my camera there, and I'm just going to jump in the Jeep. But something told me to stay, and I did, and I just continued taking pictures. Those bison, they came out of that water, and they're shaking that water off of them, and they start running towards us, but like a switch. Someone had flipped a switch. They made a turn, and they ran parallel to us instead of at us.
Instead of over you. Instead of over you.
Instead of over us, exactly.
Oh my.
So there's adventures like that we have throughout. Every time we visit Yellowstone, there's always a different adventure. That's never happened again, but it was racing, heart pounding, and breathtaking all at once.
I can only imagine. Janine is saying that she doesn't know if they have skunks in Australia, but she knows, and there are the birds there are just they're so gorgeous and so beautiful, and that kind of stuff would probably be out in the wild. I don't know, but let me ask you something, Alicia. Do you video much when you go? I just thought about that.
I'm going to start video.
Yeah.
I'm going to start. I do video some things, and actually, Yellowstone. Somebody passed a law recently that said, you know, people who might monetize from video will have to apply for a permit to video in national parks. And I'm like, okay, really?
Are
I'm not.
you serious?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to be reversed because what they're trying to do is limit these big production companies coming in and taking up resources and trying to, claim a large space to record a video, a commercial or something like that,
Well,
as opposed.
that I get, but just an individual with their little camera or whatever, I think
Yeah,
it should be allowed. I mean, I do
yeah.
get the big companies, and they shouldn't be doing that for free if it's, a commercial's going to be on TV, but otherwise. Robin wants to know what's your favorite photo capture. That's a great question.
Mm. Actually, one of my more fun ones is the little skunk photo I took
Oh, that's so cute.
outside
It's
in
good.
my backyard.
Yeah.
I just thought he's
Oh,
so cute.
so talk about that, Alicia, because I know most people on here know you. They know or probably know that you go to Yellowstone and you've done all these trips. But what about just in your own property that you have? What are some things you've captured there? You talk about the bobcats and different things, but what are some things that people oftentimes don't think about right outside their door?
There's raccoons and we're just now seeing bobcat and fox, a gray fox. But I think, and actually, Robin, one of my favorite photos ever is a family of red foxes in Yellowstone. I got to spend hours through on multiple days to photograph this family, and just seeing these little kits, little fur balls with their mom and dad, and the way they cared
Oh,
for them was probably my top photo capture. But out here, I'm getting things like, bright red cardinals. To Janine's
oh,
point, I use my long lens, I use a fast shutter speed, and I make sure my lighting exposure's good on my camera. But it's not, and it's been interesting. Like, for example, I will drive around my neighborhood or my city,
yeah.
and I'll go to little ponds because one of my desires is to photograph a great blue heron, which probably stands about 3 feet tall, and it eats fish. But they're very dynamic when they end up catching a fish. Yeah. Or when they take off.
They take off.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Yeah. Now you had told me earlier that you're thinking about doing um, a pond on your property.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something I want to do. So unfortunately, excuse me, Debbie wasn't able to see. We have 4 acres. And it's we've got native plants called blue bonnets that
Yes.
grow in one section. We've got an office, a deck where I sit and watch my hummingbirds come in. After they migrate in the spring, and they migrate south in the fall. And my owls will sit out on my deck, and then in the back it, is enough space where I could build a pond. And I want to build a pond because of the diverse wildlife there. Everything from little toads and frogs to lizards, to birds. I'm not opposed to photographing the same bird over and over, especially if
Exactly.
especially if you catch them eating an insect or drinking water. I mean, that's different, and that's something too, Janine, and those who are interested in wildlife photography. Try to catch the animal doing something. Even yawning can make an interesting photo.
I've seen when you said that. I think it's a fox, a baby. No, it's a baby wolf. It's yawning. That's a really famous picture that I've seen. That's a really, really good point. Robin, or let's see, Janine was asking for your Instagram handle. It's basically Alicia in the wild, correct?
Yeah.
Just like on the screen here where she's got her website, Alicia in the Wild is her Instagram account. And so you can check that out. She got some great pictures on there. Now, one of the things I've been, because we've known each other for a long time and I've heard you
Yeah.
speak and I've been at different events where you were speaking and that we've been speaking at together. And one of the things that I'm always impressed with is you show people how simple it is to take a passion, a hobby, a project, whatever, and build that into a speech that then resonates with an audience because you do that so well in
Thank you.
regards to resiliency, the adaptability, all those things. Talk about anything special you could, because again, I don't think people sometimes think about that. They want to speak or they do speak, but do they use that as a foundation, whatever that hobby or interest or passion is?
You know what, Debbie, it's interesting. This is speaking on wildlife is new to me. About 2 years, actually. I served coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners who use speaking to grow their business. They use
Right.
speaking as a form of marketing. And so I was teaching them
Right.
what they needed to do at the back of the room whenever they spoke. And
Right.
yes, I've spoken across the United States on that. But now speaking about wildlife, man, it's just a totally different feeling because I'm speaking from my heart. I mean,
Right.
my graphic design and branding and coaching, that was my brain passion. But the wildlife
I
and getting
love
out
that.
into nature, that's my heart passion.
I love that. I love that. Robin has put in and let me apologize, y'all. For whatever reason, I can't get my LinkedIn to come up on my phone, so I can't do the answer questions there. So if you're there and I don't see it, my sincere apologies because I can only see what's on the screen here, and I know not everyone's coming up here. But Alicia and I both will go back on LinkedIn and answer anything that's there and
Yeah.
respond to that. But Robin has posted that. I'm just gonna put it up. This is why I don't. This I love nature. I love being outside, but I don't like that.
And she says water snakes.
Yeah,
Brr.
I mean, I'm sure they're fine, but I'm like, if it's an oversized worm, to me, it's a snake and it's like a cobra. I don't care. I don't
Oh,
like.
that's
I don't do
hilarious.
snakes. I don't do snakes. But what was Robin was saying here? Alicia gave me enough of wildlife, and when I moved to the mountains, I wasn't as fearful. If you can help me get over my fear of snakes, Alicia, we got a whole new line of work there because I'm terrified. I mean,
Oh.
terrified of them. I don't like them, but I love being outside. I think it's so important. You talk about a reset button. Talk about that. But
Mm.
talk about your reset button. I think that is so cool.
So, for years before I was introduced to Yellowstone, I loved going to the beach. The beach just really calmed my nerves. It helped me relax. It helped me kind of reset my brain and think about things overreaching instead of being so focused at the office. And I'll never forget, before we went to Yellowstone, my husband had decided to run for city council. And it was very tumultuous time. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of stress, a lot of just venom. Venom. It's venomous. Politics is venomous, even on the city level. And I remember going to Yellowstone for the first time, and I saw my grizzly bear in the Grand Tetons. I saw coyote and bison and elk in the Yellowstone, and then I saw the beauty and the nature in Yellowstone. And my phone didn't work there though, and I was so worried about my phone because I wanted to know what people were saying during this political turmoil. And I realized then that I didn't need my phone. I needed to be present. And after I realized I needed to be present, actually, it was my husband going, "Put your phone away." Um,
Reminder.
right? And it was after I decided to be present, like on day 3, that I realized what was right in front of me.
Mhm.
And everything just slowed down. And I realized something very important. All that mattered was me, my husband, and my dog. That was it. That's all that mattered in life. And from that, I say Yellowstone is the reset button for my soul because now every time I go back, I am recentered, I'm re-energized, I've removed myself from all the noise, and it totally resets my soul. And that's one of the things I want to share with others, is that I hope that they will find their place outdoors, because it's outdoors is where it's at. Find some place in nature that resets the button for your soul.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you know me, I love social, I love being online, I love all that, but I also strongly believe what you're saying. There's a time and a place, and it's important to not always be on your phone because you miss what's around you. And I think we give young people a really bad time. I see just as many adults, if not more, on their phones than I do kids. And I think it's a bad example. We said not to be present in the moment. That's why we're all so conscious of Sadie Mae's time on screen time. She watched Mrs. Rachel, but whatever. But you want to have that time to reset and to be in the moment of what you're missing. On our porch out front, we have 4 rocking chairs, and just sitting out there and looking at the pasture and the fields. And there's something about that. You don't even have to do anything, but just saying that when you were talking, Alicia, I actually took a deep breath. It's like, because that's what you do when you go out. You take a deep breath and you relax a little bit.
Mhm.
That's beautiful what Janine said. What you said is beautiful, Alicia.
Thank
Being
you.
able to
Thank you,
find your
Janine.
heart's passion and do what you love must be so incredibly fulfilling. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's why people resonate with you so much, because they can tell it is a passion. Alicia had a birthday party, what, 3 years ago or so? Time has gone by. And we were gracious enough to be, you were gracious enough to invite us, and we went. Alicia had a monkey on her shoulder at that birthday party. It was the coolest thing. It was kind of a Bollywood theme, and it was just such an incredible experience. But I can still remember that monkey that you had on your shoulder that we all got to take pictures with and enjoy, and that was an incredible moment.
Yeah, another reason why I had a monkey is because an elephant cost way too much. Um,
Probably so. A lot
it
more
did.
cleanup too. A lot more cleanup too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and that's, you talk about your property, and that's the same thing out here. We moved to these little four. I've been a city girl all my life. A city girl all my life until 2015, when we moved out here. And I'll never forget, we were here maybe 3 months, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law visited, and she looked at me. She said, "Something's different." I said, "Yeah." She said, "You seem more relaxed. You seem more relaxed, both my husband and myself." And I said, it's different here. It's different here. We will sit out on the deck and watch the sun go down. I love how the sun rays filter through the trees and dapple the ground below. It's fascinating.
It is. It is. Robin said she needs to go buy her a camera. I think that's what I was. I was joking when I said it, but I wasn't, because the only pictures I take are on my phone. I think I have 29,000 pictures on there. I need to clean that up. That's another story. But so this year when you go to Yellowstone, do you have a plan when you go each time of certain things that you want to capture, or is it just whatever God reveals? I mean, is there a plan for certain animals or certain landscapes, or?
I always want to see otter, but I never see otter every year. We got lucky last year with moose. In my calendar, I actually give these calendars away that I make. Actually, this is Blondie with 3 of her cubs. Oh, I forgot about that. But last year we saw 6 moose in 2.5 hours. We haven't seen 6 moose in 3 years until last year. So it that's why we go back every year. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to see. But we look for fox dens. We look for coyote hunting. Wolf just don't like us.
They're pretty private though as a whole, right? I mean, aren't they hard to capture?
They're way out there. They're way out there. When you go to Yellowstone, you get into a valley where the wolf live, and there's hills and mountains on. It's kind of like a soup bowl.
Yeah, like so.
But when you're sitting in the middle of that soup bowl, and the wolf are coming off of a hill, you're not going to take pictures of them. You're not going to get pictures of them. But I am jealous of some photographers who seem to be in the right place at the right time every single time.
So tell us. So Alicia's gracious enough every year to give me a calendar, and I love, love, love your calendars. So do you? How hard is it to choose what pictures you put in your calendar? That has to be a challenge.
You know what's funny? Rick and I are very, very critical of our images. So the process of vetting which image goes in there is basically what we do. We'll shoot 6,000 photos a day or 10,000
Oh,
photos a
sure.
day. Yeah, and we're narrowing it down to 14 photos, cover, back, and then one for each month.
Right.
We pick the best one, the one that we uh, think will resonate with the audience, with our friends and family, and then we just pick the best ones. Now, last year it was slim. We didn't have. I like to put a different animal on each month.
Uh-huh.
I don't like to repeat the same animal unless it's maybe there's a grizzly bear with two cubs nursing. That's one I'll put on there. And then if there's a grizzly bear sleeping or climbing a tree, I would use that.
Right.
But last year we didn't have a diversity. We didn't have coyotes like we normally do, or
Uh-huh.
foxes, and I couldn't find elk to take
Do you
pictures
know
of.
why that is? Do you have any idea why?
I think it's just the seasons. I think
Yeah.
it just changes. Their their habitat changes just like ours does. Ours is more constant because we're taking care of our backyards by mowing or trimming
Mhm.
bushes and stuff like that. But out in the wild, the food source, it depends on where the food source is.
That's true. It's always the food. Some of my comments popped up on my phone, so I can see some now. Debbie Mrazek is saying,
Hey, Debbie.
she goes, she loves her calendar. She loves her. She says next time need to rent an elephant uh, for the party. We'll all come ride the elephant. But that is so true. Like I said, one time Phil and I and Stacy and David were on our way to. I think we were going to Utah for the event. We drove, and I can't remember why. I think it was we had to go anyway. I can't remember why, but we came upon this valley. There were, I kid you not, thousands of elk, thousands, and it was breeding season. Let me just tell you, that was the talk about like the bison with the snorting and the sounds and the imagery, and the people who live in this town, they're familiar with this, and so they know what to do. But and there really weren't that many cars that were pulled over watching it, but we were mesmerized by it because it was just like, and I'm not kidding, well, I don't want to say thousands, but there had to have been close to 1,000. The whole valley was full of these elk, and I know they can be kind of dangerous, so we were smart enough to stay back. We were just trying to enjoy the moment, if you will, because we'd never seen something like that. But the sounds, actually, it was the sound that we heard on the other road in town that let us know something was there, and that was because they were mating and had something to do with the call. I don't know. It's outside my zone, but it was a cool experience for sure. It was a very cool. So now, Alicia, I put your website up there. Now, don't you sell prints too, right?
I do. I sell prints. I'm I'm new at selling prints. I've
Right.
had, I've been taking photos since I was 12 years old, and this is my first time to actually sell prints. But I do have things like landscape photography
That
on
is
there.
beautiful.
That's Oxbow Bend in Grand Teton National Park. And that's just, one of the photos that I'm putting on there. And you know, um, of course, we have our bears. That's a black bear, kind of
That's
hard to see.
beautiful.
But yeah, I have photos on there if anybody wants to see. And eventually, I will be putting graphic art on there where I take my image into Photoshop and then I remove all the color and then add like bright primary colors like
Oh,
pinks and
cool.
purples and kind of an explosive mix of colors.
Now, Debbie Mrazek knows you well too. And when you go to Yellowstone in your motorhome, you take your kitty, right? You have one or two.
I have two,
Kitty,
Debbie.
your cat's going to be upset. But I've seen the pictures of where you're on the road or you're at Yellowstone or whatever, and the kitties are laying up on the deck in the sun, probably while you're out taking pictures. They're
Mhm.
over there.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, Debbie, that's a great point because we have a motorhome and we're able to take the dog and the two cats and they get along fine. We park our motorhome in a city just north of Yellowstone when we're in Yellowstone, and then there's actually an RV park in the Grand Teton National Park that we stay at.
So now, do you pull a Jeep behind your motorhome?
We can pull a Jeep, or we can pull a four-door pickup truck.
Okay.
And we like the Jeep because it's two-lane roads throughout the parks, and it's just easier to maneuver, to get in and out of the Jeep and to maneuver it. Like, so here's what happens. You're driving down the road and your eyes are peeled. You're looking for anything. And maybe there's an eagle in a tree, perched in a tree. Well, you pass them, so what do? You want to turn around. Well,
Right.
it's easier to do that in a Jeep than it is a truck.
Yeah, motorhome is or a truck is like almost impossible. So our time is with us, but let share. I remember you and I talking recently, and we were talking about living in the suburbs because Phil and I lived in Plano the same way, 30 years before we moved to the country with Tawny and Bill and the kids. What's something people can do even in their backyard in the suburbs? You talk about trimming trees and what you can do with your bush. I think that's so important to share because people don't often think about those kinds of things. It's easy out in the country. It's very easy to have little habitats for critters, but not so much in the suburbs because the lawns are manicured all the time.
Lawns are manicured, you have HOAs, but there are things you can do to be a wildlife advocate in your own backyard. And that is to plant native plants, because what happens when you plant native plants is they seed, and that seed is what the birds will eat. Planting bushes. Another thing you can do is you can trim, if you're trimming branches off of your tree or your bushes, go ahead and collect them in a pile in the corner of your backyard, and that can be a refuge for bunnies. Bunnies may actually find find it suitable for nesting, and then pollinators, bees,
Oh,
wasps, butterflies, have flowering plants and bushes throughout the spring and summer, so that those pollinators, including hummingbirds, will come and visit you. Debbie, you told me you have bird feeders up. That's
yeah,
perfect.
we do. We have them for Sadie Mae's. The birds will come. And our son-in-law Bill loves birds, and he has a bunch of hummingbird feeders, and they outside his office, and they literally just swarm the whole time. There's something so re-energizing about that. I mean, truly. Debbie had a funny point here. She wants to know, amazed you travel the cats, they're going to be upset you mentioned the dog. So they all get along in the motorhome, Felicia, the dog and the cats.
They all get along, and yes, Debbie, you're right. The cats are kind of divas, and the boy and the girl, they're kind of divas, and they're going to know that I talked about the dog and my husband.
Anyone who has cats know they are divas. Dogs are so lovable and friendly. Cats are like, yeah, whatever. If I want to do it, I will. If I don't, I'm not going to do it.
She's
For
so
sure.
cute. I love Debbie. Yeah, she's so
Yeah,
cute.
she's got her sweet pets as well. So Alicia, again, one last thing I want to ask you, because like I said, you spoke on other things before, back of the room, helping other clients and how they could do that. What made you decide to want to start incorporating the wildlife? Because I think it's fabulous. I mean, I really think that's so cool. There's so many things with resiliency, as I said before, adaptability, that you can help an organization with through stories with your animal travels and your animal photography. What made you decide to start doing that?
Well, honestly, I have a lot of people who advocate for me and say,
There you
you
go.
need to be telling these stories. And Debbie, you're one of them.
I
I
am.
mean, you are one of them. And so I started toying with the idea, about 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago, I said, well, maybe this is a thing. And the more I talk about it, the more it settled with me. It didn't feel scary. It didn't feel like I had to I don't want to say fight, but didn't have to
Overcome.
didn't have to overcome a lot to be able to share these stories. And my hope is to inspire people to just get outside for 15 minutes a day and just look at the sky, look at the ground, look at their surroundings, listen, hear, see, smell. And then at some point, think about what's going on in your backyard. What can you do to make it more appetizing for wildlife habitat? We're losing habitat every
Yes,
day in every country,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
we can't get it back at the way that it was in a quickly. It takes a long time to restore habitat.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't, I think to your point, which I think is a really good message you share, it doesn't have to be big. Get a planter, get a bird feeder, get whatever, a little nest in the backyard of cuttings and trimmings. But, and I think it's so important that we teach our young people that because they're growing up in a world of such high tech that that's easy to lose. And so, yeah, I so appreciate you, Alicia. You know how much I adore you and I just value
Yeah.
you so much as a friend. And I have been for years. I was like, you take these wonderful pictures
Yes.
of all this wildlife. And everyone on here knows that as well. And so thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And I so appreciate it. And like I said, whether you're here live or recorded, thank you for joining us. And Alicia and I will go into the comments and answer since we're having some technical difficulties with getting all the comments up. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you being here. And again, thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Debbie. Thanks, everyone.